Your company does not care about you. They will tell you that they do.
Go watch this young lady's whole video. I have spent the last several years trying to explain this publicly to people that no, companies don't care about you. They can't care about you. They care about their profits. And I'm saying this as a business owner myself. You were never meant to be a lifelong employee at a company. You were never meant for that. You were meant to be your own business. You were meant to apprentice for a little while and then go do your own thing. This is the way of things. This is what the American system of free enterprise was supposed to be. Not this lifelong corporate nonsense where you just work in a meat grinder and that doesn't care about you. And they don't. And they never will, by the way. So no, you were supposed to actually own your own production. You're supposed to be your own man, your own woman. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. I'm not criticizing this young lady. She makes extremely good points, and she's 100% correct on this. This is how a lot of companies are behaving now because their executive management staff are so far detached from all reality, right? No different than the Soviet leadership. This exact same thing happened in the Soviet Union, except it was the government that did all this stuff to their people. The government didn't care about their people. You're here today, gone tomorrow. What do they care? They would make up ridiculous jobs for people, like counting nuts and bolts all day long. I mean, like, this is the kind of thing that actually happens. And near the end of the Soviet Union, everybody pretty much looted everything because there was no reason to care. That should be coming now, right? Now you could say, like, oh, but they're private businesses. No, they're private businesses in name only, right? Like, none of these giant mega corporations can exist without fiat large S. If you don't know what fiat large S is, then you don't follow me, because I've explained it on many occasions. For those of you who don't know, what that means is money printed from nothing, literally printed, conjured from nothing. It's dollars, right? So none of those companies can survive without that. None of them. They would all be long bankrupt. They would have been bankrupt 25 years ago, right? Like, all these mega companies, Walmart, you name it, they would have all been gone years ago. And none of the mega companies that exist nowadays could survive without the idea of corporate bonds, and which is just hypothecation of more dollars. That's all this stuff is. It's just endless amounts of debt on debt on debt on debt on debt, which is why you're seeing debt increasing everywhere. And it will never go away, by the way. They're never going to pay this back. None of this will ever be paid back. It'll just keep increasing. And that's just the reality of all of this. So no, you were never supposed to be this. I mean, for women, I mean, we're supposed to go and be moms and raise the next generation. You could say, oh, well, that's sexist. I don't care. Nothing about my channel cares what you think. I'm telling you the truth. Like, that's what you were supposed to do. And your men were supposed to own businesses, small businesses. That's what they were supposed to do. They were not supposed to be in the corporate meat grinder their entire lives, because this is exactly what happens. And no amount of bribery is going to work. And by the way, any promises that they make to you, dude, they have no way mathematically to keep any of those promises. That's why they want to harass you until you quit. That's why they want turnover. Companies love turnover. I know they talk about how they don't want turnover. No, they don't want turnover of very specific people. Very expensive people to replace, they don't want turnover there. Everybody else, they don't care. They don't care about turnover. They put on this, they play this little game where they don't, which is why she talks about this. She talks about why it is they basically torture people. Yeah, it's to get them to quit. It's to that way they don't have to keep, they don't have to keep any of the promises that they've been making to you your whole life, right? They make you all these promises. You go into the HR department, HR, which is full to the brim of liars, professional liars, by definition, actually. And they tell you, yeah, if you work here and you do all this and you work hard, you're going to get ahead. Okay, there's a lot of vagaries with that. Like, you don't know how to negotiate. All right. I mean, I teach people how to negotiate all the time, and I do it for free. I do it on this channel, where I point out that if you want to learn how to, dude, all you have to do is just say, okay, hold on. What do you mean by work hard? Define that for me. Most of them, it'll shut them right up. They have no clue what they're talking about. It's like this, that'll just make them break down. You'll hear that, dum. That's what you'll hear. Okay. They won't know what to think about that. Then you say, okay, well, what does get ahead mean? What exactly does that mean? Like, how much money am I getting? How much security am I getting? Like start asking these questions, and you're going to find out that most of these companies have nothing. They have no math. And if they made all those promises, I guarantee you, if you times that by however many employees that they have, There is no way mathematically for them to cover any of that. And that, by the way, the U word, the union, that's where unions actually used to come into play. Now, I realize that a lot of unions have gone way too far with this stuff, and that's true. Some of them have. Some of them have stopped being labor unions, and they're just unions, right? But no, there used to be, the reason why you had that was so that you had a union negotiator, someone like me, who would go in there and say, okay, well, what exactly? Let's start defining all these words, because if you're going to have people showing up, and you're going to have them doing all this work, right, and you know that they're never going to be promoted, but you're still printing money at 14% a year. You're still increasing the money supply by 14% a year, which means you should be technically raising their wages by 14% a year to keep up with the inflation that the government and corporate America both are causing. That's what should be happening. And yet it's not. How many people are getting 14% annual raises? Virtually nobody that I know of. And by the way, for those of you wondering, yeah, the giant mega corporations and the giant government are all funded by giant banking that sits on top of that pyramid. This is all reality. And you're going to have to start realizing this, younger people, that none of these companies give a shit about you. Like none of them. They are all going to treat you like this until you just churn and burn. And so that way it's like a game of musical chairs. They don't want you to be the last one there when the music stops, and they don't want you to be at their company. They want it to be somebody else's problem, right? You can look at the way that most CEOs operate. Most CEOs operate on like a 2-year horizon, and that's it. They show up, the golden boy shows up to fix the company, right? We all know the story. Anybody who's worked in corporate America knows what I'm talking about. Golden boy shows up, he's gonna fix the company. Yeah, all he does is cook the books for 2 years. And then he gets pirated away to some other company, and the next guy shows up and he's like, what the hell am I gonna do with this? This is a fucking disaster. What the fuck am I gonna do with this? I mean, all this guy did was fire all the expensive people, there was the competent people, and leave all these other people here who have no clue what the fuck they're doing. And how are we supposed to make any of this work? Well, quick, make all the products garbage. Treat customers like shit, cut benefits. That's exactly what they do. This is because there's no other way to save the company at that point. It's a one-way death spiral, and it has been going on for the last 15 years, minimum 15 years. But really in earnest, the last 10. This is where you're starting to see that very slowly, then very quickly, kind of like gravity when you approach, that's just kind of how it works, okay? Kind of like bankruptcy. It's the same basic idea. It starts off very slowly, then it goes very quickly. All of these things are coming to an end because the math is catching up. No, you are never supposed to be a corporate drone. Like, I'm talking to you, whoever is watching this. You were never intended for that. You were intended to be something a lot bolder. Like, well, but there's regulations and taxes and so forth. Yes, that's why there was supposed to be a Second Amendment, because then that's the check and balance for taxes and regulations, right? I mean, we just saw the CEO of what United Health get whacked in New York. You understand that I'm not condoning this. I'm saying that, if you broaden that to the big corporate side and the big government side, and you start fanning it out and realizing that these people are all in bed with each other and they are all the same goddamn people. They are all this. Many of them are related, like literally blood relations with each other. The regulators that work in these companies for the government are literally blood related to a lot of the executive staff in these companies. That's a conflict of interest. That's as clear a conflict of an interest as having dual citizenship and working in government. It's a clear-cut conflict of interest. So when you leftists and you idiot rightists finally realize that, dude, you have both been pig-fucked by both sides, maybe you'll get your shit together and start demanding an actual end to all the goddamn gun laws, and that'll bring back your checks and fucking balances.